Hello, everybody. Welcome to Therapists Supporting Therapists. I am Michelle Lundstrom, and I have the beautiful, talented Shannon Nemzer. Did I say your name right?
Nemzer.
Nemzer. She's,
Nemzer.
yeah, she's here with me, and she has been a licensed clinical social worker and working in mental health for almost 20 years. She is very smart with trauma and also alternative healing therapies. And she's going to talk to us today about highly sensitive people, HSPs. So you may hear us throw HSP around a lot. That stands for highly sensitive person, or empaths. And we're gonna have a chat today. Welcome, Shannon.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me, Michelle. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here. Can you tell us a little bit? So a lot of our audience, I was telling you off camera, I think there's a lot of therapists that maybe have this highly sensitive person trait or empath trait. And so for therapists watching today, can you tell us a little bit about what those traits are that people might identify with?
Yeah, well, I was going to talk a little bit about, what you might see in a client or any person who's HSP, and then I can give a little specific about what you might feel as a therapist, if that's okay.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, so there's so many different traits, and I'm just going to kind of name some typical ones, but I'd say having difficulty in crowds, like having a hard time in large groups of people, just feeling overwhelmed. Sensitivities to light, to sound, to smells, some of that or all of that together. Sometimes difficulty letting go of an emotion or a thought, like a negative emotion, a thought or experience, having a more difficult time letting it go than others might have. High levels, experiencing high levels of tension and anxiety. Maybe we tend to be a little harder on ourselves because we can be very tuned into the details of everything and ourselves.
I can relate to that one.
Yeah. There can be a fear of rejection. So even in like very minor kind of rejection, like avoidance, seeing a lot of avoidance, like not being willing to ask for something because there's a fear of rejection. Um, Very intense worrying and thinking about what other people are thinking about and feeling about. And a lot of it, people don't realize, if you are an HSP or an empath, you don't realize that everyone else isn't doing that. The whole world isn't always thinking and feeling about what other people are thinking and feeling about. But we tend to like be very overly tuned in.
That's a really important one, Shannon, and that I think a lot of people that have this trait really do believe, like, everyone processes information this way. Everybody gets all these kind of nervous system hits. And so, yeah, like, it's different.
Right. I think that was, that was a really critical thing for me to learn about myself. And I started to learn all of that actually when I first became a therapist, like right out of grad school. In my first position where I was accruing hours, I was doing intensive services, FSP, and just feeling so overwhelmed all the time, and not understanding why the people that I was teaming with didn't see the cases the same way. And I felt insecure because I was so new. Like, surely I must be wrong, like that I'm feeling or thinking all of this stuff that's going on. Yeah. So I think as a therapist, um, things, we're naturally can be great, some of the best therapists, because we kind of attune easier with our clients. We have our feelers out already. We don't really notice that if we're not aware of our sensitivities. We tend to be more intuitive. It can cause, so back to what I was saying about as a therapist, it can cause frustration in teaming with other clinicians or case managers or parent partners, because we may see and feel things deeper, see through a different lens than they do. So even in supervision, that can be a problem if you can therapists that can think back feeling like they were really struggling trying to explain the way they were seeing their cases, because it's like beyond the clinical that you're learning in school. There's like this extra sensory stuff going on, right?
Yeah, that sense of knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think what people might hear a lot is, that there's a lot of countertransference and that we're not managing it. In the beginning, when you're a newer therapist, that's what it is, countertransference. It is extra information, all this information we're getting and feeling from our clients, right? I think taking more home than the average therapist, so having a really hard time shutting our brain off, really wanting to help and thinking about our clients, after hours, at night, interrupting sleep, because we're still tuned into them and maybe not doing a good job at separating that part of ourselves from our self at home.
Yeah.
So
It
those
is
are,
a care.
yeah.
And it takes time to learn how to navigate that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It takes a lot of time. Yeah.
Yes.
Have tons on my list, but I'm just thinking, yeah, I mean, I think, there's just this like extra need for self-care. I think that that's a big indicator too. I think everyone needs self-care, right? And therapists, caregivers, anyone, who's in a profession of helping others needs extra. But as an empath or an HSP, it's like it just shoots through the roof how much you have to take care of yourself to feel okay. So I think that's kind of a big indicator when you're like, gosh, I've been doing all this self-care and I still feel drained. I still feel overwhelmed. Um, yeah.
Yeah. We need self-care like we need air.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
That's been one of my biggest frustrations until I accepted it, is like, how much self-care do I need? Like, this is ridiculous amounts that I'm needing. But once I started allowing myself to have it, I felt so much better.
Yeah.
Did so much better. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. We all need self-care. And one of the things I've noticed, and I'm hearing this from um, HSP empath therapists as well as ones that don't identify that way, that this switch to telehealth has been more exhausting. And I think maybe for non-HSPs and empaths, it's like reading the body language. And for those of us who identify in this way, it's more of like we're used to reading all this information face to face, and now we're having to like stretch our muscles in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. I think that I can tune in just as well online than I can if I'm in person, but there is this stretch, it's like a new skill that you're learning, and it feels, more intense for me, for sure.
Yeah, it's building endurance with a new muscle, the
Yeah.
same muscle, but a new way.
Yes, and definitely figuring out how to adjust to it is important. I haven't been able to see clients the same way that I was in person. I could go, and most HSPs have a hard time with just going back to back with clients. I tend to do better that way because I stay focused, and I have a hard time going between two things to like take a break and come back. It's like a bigger adjustment. But with telehealth, it's been harder. I've needed a break because I'm just staring at a computer. I
Yeah.
have to get up and look at the trees and get some air.
Yes, fill ourselves back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you identify as an HSP empath as well. I'm curious how you're experiencing the world right now as a human being and as a therapist.
Wow. I'm experiencing a lot, as you can imagine, as you are as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, I'm intensely experiencing the dichotomy of this larger meaning or purpose, I think, for what we're all experiencing. There's something else going on, something bigger. I don't, have my finger on what it is, but I can feel it. The the possibilities and the expansion. So I'm feeling all of that on one side, and then I'm also on the other side feeling all the anxiety and the fear and the worry, the irritability, the frustration, sadness, um, and I'm feeling that through my clients, through my family, and through myself. And so, and this is a perfect example of what it feels like to be an HSP or an empath. You feel so much all at one time. And, we can all feel the opposites, right? But it's like we hold, like as a sensitive person, we hold it differently. It just penetrates more deeply.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an important point, right? We process things on such a deep level, which is great because we can contain all of that and we can hold those opposites. And at the same time, that also is going to be something that we need to be tending to now if we identify in this way. Because we integrate so deeply, we have to work harder to clear up the trauma. And
Yeah.
so we have got to tend to it now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really important to our situations are so different, right? I mean, we're not getting as much space as we were getting before. I think one of the biggest, I do groups for empaths, and one of the number one things that I talk about is needing quiet time. They absolutely, empaths and sensitives absolutely need some form of quiet time where they're able to just tune into themselves and not anybody else. And different people need different levels or amounts of that. But some of us are finding a challenge in finding that. I know I'm finding a challenge.
Yes, being at home and having children, and yes, it's
Yeah.
hard.
And even the pets. I have two dogs that need my full attention. There's no escaping for me. There's nowhere for me to go. I'm on for everybody every moment. And so I think it's about figuring out how to find that quiet time to tune into yourself every day. And if that's meditating in the morning, if that's taking a walk in nature, if that's taking an extra long shower, whatever it is, to just kind of tune into how we are feeling before we interact with everybody else. I'd say a practice of that in the morning and at the end of the day is really important, because if not, we're just carrying over everything that our clients are experiencing and our families are experiencing, and we're having a hard time. I was having a hard time. This has been going on my third week of being home. So the first week was a circus.
Yeah.
And I just found myself like yelling, get away from me, get away from me. But that's like my sensitivity is like, I feel like everyone's on top of me. So I figure out, how do I create it? I need to go for a bike ride by myself, or sit in the backyard by myself, or create this lovely office space in my garage where nobody can get to me. It's like it's important to figure out how to find it, and it won't be the same as what we were doing before.
Yeah.
But there are always, opportunities for new ways.
Absolutely. So we've been talking a little bit about some of those differences, and from what I understand, the highly sensitive person's nervous system, like we were talking about, just takes in information in a different way. So for therapists listening, what does this mean for them during the pandemic, when so many people are feeling all of that fear and all of that anxiety, and then the people on the other end of the spectrum saying everything's fine?
Yeah, I know. Gosh, that's a tough question. What does this mean for? Well, I think that we may have the ability, like we were talking a little bit before, to tune into it, to gather information, to sense information that's helpful for everybody. If we're allowing ourselves that space to kind of cleanse our energy before and after with the world and all the feelings. But I've been noticing for myself themes that are coming up with clients, and then I'll go in the house and I'll see the same theme playing out in my family, and I'm like, oh, this is important. I'm seeing the same thing. This is important. This is information. And that's the intuitive part. That's one of the beauties of being a sensitive person, is that we are more intuitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it means we need to take extra good care of ourselves, but it also means that there's information there that we may be able to have and share as it comes up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So many of us, I know you and I have both dabbled in telehealth previously to this, but a lot of people are working from home on telehealth and with families at home. You mentioned your family, and what are some tips that you may have to share for managing distractions and dogs and spouses and
Hmm.
traffic?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have to think about that. I mean, what I did was create a space for myself, and we don't all have that ability. And although this, like I mentioned to you, the space looks nice behind me, it's not a glorious space. So it's about finding some kind of especially if you're doing telehealth, creating some kind of quiet space. I think, figuring out what the rhythm of your family is, which takes a while. It took me well into my second week to figure out this is when there's more energy and that we need to be out walking and doing things. And this is when there's low energy, lower settled energy. And I could, give activities for a distraction. Like here, coloring, or I could have fun things set up because I know that my child will be more settled. Same thing with the dogs. I mean, just getting a routine, I think, is important. I am not a routine person, so that's a very interesting thing for me to say. I get bored easily, and I fight routines, but it's been saving me. It's been saving. I'm not sticking to it tooth and nail. There's flexibility in it, but just looking at it day by day. Sorry, I don't know how to turn those off. What do I need to do today? What does everyone else in my house need to do today? How can I schedule it in a way where it's going to feel the best for everybody? So, and taking care of, that's what we do as moms, as therapists, as empaths, taking care of other people's needs. So I'm tuning into the day of what they need and making sure to get those details settled. Yeah. So, being creative, it's just different, and being gentler, kinder about everything, like my child might have a tantrum in the middle of this, and that just might happen. And I can't be overly upset at her or with myself, because we're all just trying to figure it out, and it's okay. We're human.
Yeah. We're just humans trying to have this experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What an experience we chose, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of the traits of HSP is being that, the auditory and the light, and I think it's called sensory processing sensitivity. I have that. I have a lot of, I can't deal with a lot of loud noise, and I do great with sunlight, but other lights tend to bug me. Unnatural light, fluorescent lights, that kind of thing. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, the way that I talk to my clients about it is because oftentimes clients are coming to me not knowing that they're an empath or sensitive. They just happen to find me other ways. But that's what I'm hearing in their story, is that their senses are just, I talk about it as just the dial being turned up. So it's like what sounds loud to a normal person, is like excruciatingly loud, can be to us. Or visually, I'm auditorily and visually sensitive. I'm very sensitive in all the ways, but like I can't watch scary movies. I can't even see a scary image, it will just get like burned, imprinted in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I can't watch anything violent, like violent or because I just will feel into it. And I notice this across the board with many of my clients. Hearing as well, just I'm someone that can hear something across the house, and like the dog is licking her paw 3 rooms away, and I need her to stop because it's driving me crazy. So I think that our senses are just the dial is turned up, and it's good to be aware of what your sensitivities are. Is it is it light? Is it sound? Is it taste? Is it smell? And how do you adjust for it? Because the world is not going to adjust for us. That's what I teach my clients. It's like and I also for many years was so frustrated. And I can think back to many ridiculous arguments like, why are you talking so loud? I'm not talking loud. I'm just talking to you, but it's so loud. Can you stop yelling at me?
Yeah.
And what I've noticed over time is that your sensitivities can go, they can go up and down, and that could be a lot of different things. I won't get into that, but just to notice that if you're a sensitive person, that your senses are your responsibility, and it's our job to protect ourselves and take care of ourselves and not expect the world to know or understand or adjust for us. Obviously, in our intimate relationships, we would expect some adjustment, but we also have to explain it in a way that they understand.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
being
just,
able to say that in a loving way. Yeah.
right. I can't just keep telling my partner to lower her voice because she's too loud. I have to explain that my hearing is very sensitive and how it sounds to me. Yeah.
I've learned to my mantra in my head when I feel that sensory overload start to hit, like it happened just yesterday. My husband was breathing, and that's all. He was nothing.
Yeah.
It was loud, and for whatever reason, I was just like, in me, I wanted to be this person that like yelled at him, was like, "Would you stop breathing?" And then it's like, no, wait. So my immediate mantra is, my response is my responsibility. And that always, it grounds me, it centers me. I'm kind of back in, and I can think about, okay, do I need to take action and get up and move away? Do I need to say something in a loving way? Right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that mantra. I need to write that down.
Yes, it's deeply programmed now, because when we practice a coping, we practice a mantra, and we kind of cue it, right, to come in those moments. There's
Yeah.
certain I call them body anchors, right? You get this certain physical sensation, and I've got it in there now, and it's like, my response is my responsibility. Okay, what do I
Oh,
do?
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you have given us so much wonderful information about self-care, and some tips, and some really great information about HSPs and empaths. And I was just wondering if you had any that maybe you wanted to share today that maybe we didn't get a chance to cover.
Mhm. I think one thing I wanted to mention, if I can find my note about it, is so I have an empath and sensitive wellness checklist that I created for my groups, because it's just like you're saying, it's like about our senses being our response being our responsibility. So it's this checklist that I created so people can check in when they're feeling, not just, it's hard if you're just in the moment because someone's breathing too loud. You're not going to whip out the checklist, but we go through these intense periods of time where it's like it just feels nonstop and overwhelming. And if you haven't um, learned about yourself as an empath and all the things that go with it, it can feel overwhelming. But I think questions to ask, especially during this time, would be, am I getting enough restorative downtime? If not, how can I squeeze something in today or block it out for this week? Like if you just feel like you're at your nervous system is on overload, ask yourself that question. Am I getting it? Because you know, that first week I was home all week. So yeah, I should be having tons of it, but I wasn't getting any restorative quiet time.
That's the key word, restorative.
Right. Um, I'm just going to, there's like 12, but I'm going to give you just three. Am I focusing my energy on what I do want rather than what I don't want?
Mm.
And I think that that's something to check in about too, because we are sensitive, so we can really get honed in on details and get stuck on them. And so, am I just, you know, perseverating over this negative thing in my environment, or am I allowing myself to imagine it to be different? Am I giving a space or an opportunity for what I want to come into my circumstances? Because if I just keep focusing on it, it's just going to keep getting louder and more annoying.
Yeah.
Um, and am I clearing myself of other people's energy every day?
Mm-hmm.
So that could be shaking it off, that could be dancing, listening to music, touching a tree, smudging, showering. But, you know, when you start to feel very overwhelmed, have I been, and these are questions that I have come to honestly because I have been drowning in other people's thoughts and feelings. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to say, wait, oh, I haven't been doing that. I haven't been doing a good job at that. Energetic hygiene is what I call it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Those are some really wonderful tips. I appreciate you sharing.
Oh, thanks for giving me this space.
Yes. I thank you so much for coming on here today and allowing me to interview you. You have so many wonderful tips for us, so many wonderful things to say, and you are so knowledgeable about HSPs and empaths and have so much experience in this area. And I just really, I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, this is Therapist Supporting Therapists. Thank you, everybody. Please like or subscribe below and have a great day.